Hello, people sitting in the house are doing. Today, just with the topics up, and loads of parents and loads of people have talked to me about in the last few months, especially in the last few months, in the last 2 3 months. And I didn't, make a video on it I should have probably made a video on it. But that is about Bus Éireann, and obviously, they do school ones and everything like that. And obviously, public service ones to Dublin and here, down, everywhere. And people are worried about publicisation, I suppose, private companies, in other words, taking over Bus Éireann's routes. We see this in many school ones across Cavan and Monaghan. Bus Éireann doesn't have the funding, or they don't have the resources from the state to operate buses to facilitate children going to school. And obviously it's $3.50 for a school ticket for a year. People on social welfare get it for free, and people on, people with some others who are on social welfare get it for free, which is a good thing. But before that, it was everybody went free back in the day. And it's hard to believe that. It's hard to believe that I think they're going to take nearly 100 buses off the road, school one buses, and they have no buses to replace it. They haven't got the resources to upgrade the buses. They can't take them off public ones. So basically, they have to be given to private companies now, like Floods and Cavan. And, Floods buses do a lot of ones in Cavan, school ones. Obviously, when I was growing up, Bus Éireann was there's no such thing as private buses putting kids to school. It was always Bus Éireann. There might have been one or two, going down the back roads. But it was always Bus Éireann. I remember when I was younger, it was always Bus Éireann buses. There wasn't really many private buses. Now when you look at the evening time in Cavan, you see the majority of them are private buses, and they're not public owned buses like Bus Éireann, and public funded buses, but they're more or less private buses. And that's because the government won't give the funds to the state, to the Bus Éireann, to upgrade the buses, to get new buses, because the school buses are old service buses. There's some of them been on service ones for the last 21 years, and they have to be retired next year. Obviously there's just 2,000 some of them, which is going to take a good lot of buses off the road, which is sad. School buses, and obviously parents have to go to work and everything like that, so it's annoying. It's really annoying. I can see why people are worried about power. You pay for a bus ticket, and you expect the state to be able to provide the resources to get your child to school. The resources that you pay for, you pay $3.50 a year for the bus, and you expect the state to provide you. Get your son to school, or get your daughter to school. No problem. But now it might be a bit of an issue, because there's going to be a lot taken off the road in the next year, which is annoying. It should try and work something out, because this is their education. This is young people's education we're talking about. We're not talking about young people's education should come before figures or numbers or bank account balances or whatever they want to talk about the government. Hopefully, maybe it might be sorted if they keep a few buses, or maybe the government might give them funding for new buses. But, it is a growing concern around Cavan that, there's no such thing as nearly Bus Éireann buses anymore. There are privatisation and private buses. Not like years ago, there was only Bus Éireann buses and there was no such really thing as privatisation. But it's sad now to see that there has to come to that, and it has to be that way. But anyway, maybe it might work out in the end. But anyway, thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and bye.